I never thought a relationship could trap me in such an invisible and suffocating way. If someone had told me that I, Juliana, would fall into the hands of a narcissist, I would have laughed, convinced that this could never happen to me. But today, looking back, I remember the exact moment when everything started to change. It wasn't with a scream, nor with an explicit threat. It was something far more subtle. He smiled, deleted all the messages on my phone without asking, and said in a calm, almost sweet voice, "Now you have nothing to hide from me." At that moment, part of me froze, but the other part believed it was care, believed it was love. My heart still races when I think about the first time I saw Daniel. I was 27, sitting in a cafe downtown, trying to finish an article for work. He walked in as if he owned the place, tall, confident, with that gaze that seemed to pierce through any defense. I sat there, hiding behind my laptop, but I couldn't avoid him when he came over and told me I looked like the most focused woman in the room. The way he said my name later, as if he already knew who I was, sent a shiver through my body. That night when I got home, I could still smell his perfume on my clothes. It was woody, intoxicating, and it felt like it had soaked into my skin. Before I even fell asleep, a message arrived. "I couldn't stop thinking about you." It was nearly 2 a.m, and even though I knew I needed to rest, I stared at my phone, smiling like a teenager. That gesture felt magical, like I had been chosen, seen in a way no one had ever seen me before. In the days that followed, he swept me away like a strong wave I had no chance of swimming against. Flowers delivered to my job, endless WhatsApp messages, sudden declarations. He would say things like, "You're my safe harbor, the woman I've been waiting for all my life." And I, starved for recognition and desperate to believe in love stories, surrendered. With every word, every gesture, I was convinced I had finally found what I had always imagined in silence. But in the middle of this fairy tale, small cracks began to appear. The first time he asked who I was having lunch with, I thought it was cute. The second time, when he questioned why I still kept in touch with my childhood best friend, I thought it was a bit much. But when he scrolled through my social media and said, almost laughing, "Funny, you liked that colleague's picture last night. Do you really need to do that?" Something inside me wavered. Still, the intensity of his love always drowned out any doubt. It was as if every criticism was wrapped in a hug, and I confused it all with care. There were days when I felt like the center of the universe. He would show up with unexpected gifts, write notes with phrases I had always dreamed of hearing, talk about our future together. And then, in the next instant, he would make me feel selfish, ungrateful, incapable of truly loving him. I tried to understand. Was I really making so many mistakes? Was I the one who didn't know how to love? Today, I know this was the classic guilt reversal used by a narcissist to make us doubt our own sanity. The late-night messages became routine, sometimes at 3 or 4 in the morning, and if I didn't reply right away, the next day he would show up cold, distant, wrapped in a silence that hurt more than any words. I found myself chasing after him, trying to explain, apologizing without even knowing why. Every move I made was measured, weighed, and the feeling of being constantly watched never left me. My family started to notice something was wrong. One night, my mother said softly, "You look tired, honey, like you've lost a bit of the light in your eyes." But I quickly denied it. I told her I was just overwhelmed with work, that everything was fine. The truth is, I was terrified to admit I was sinking. My world was shrinking, and I didn't want anyone to see it. I remember one Sunday clearly when he showed up unannounced at my parents' house. At first, I felt joy, thinking it was proof of his interest. But soon I noticed the way he looked at me, as if he was evaluating every detail. The way I spoke to my dad, the time I spent laughing with my sister. Later, in the car, he said in a cold tone, "Funny, you laugh a lot when you're with them. I don't see that laugh when you're with me." His words cut me like a knife. From that moment on, I started policing even my own laughter. Little by little, the home I once called safe turned into an invisible prison. Every detail became a reason for criticism. The clothes I wore, the makeup I put on, the time I left for work. And yet, every time I thought about confronting him, he would confuse me again with gestures of affection, an unexpected gift, a passionate declaration, a promise of the future. The cycle repeated itself, and I got lost in this web of pain and affection. I still believed that love meant sacrifice, to endure, to yield, to accept. I had grown up hearing that relationships required patience, and I held on to that belief like a compass. But deep down, a faint voice whispered that something was terribly wrong. That whisper grew louder on silent nights, when I lay beside him and realized my body was tense, even in sleep. But by the next day, all it took was an intense gaze or a sweet phrase to silence it. At the time, I couldn't name it, but now I understand. From the very first day, I was caught in the web of a narcissist. I just couldn't see it yet. The first real fracture came silently, like a shadow creeping into my life. It was on a Thursday night when I discovered messages on his phone. I hadn't been looking for anything, but the screen lit up while he was in the shower, and curiosity got the better of me. A woman's name I didn't recognize. Words that felt too familiar, too intimate. "I miss your voice." Last night was unforgettable. My hands trembled, my stomach turned, and a wave of nausea forced me to sit on the edge of the bed. When he came out, towel around his waist, I confronted him with a voice that barely sounded like mine. Instead of guilt or explanation, he laughed. A cold, sharp laugh that echoed in the room. "You're paranoid, Juliana. Always exaggerating. She's just a friend. You really should work on your jealousy." And in that instant, I doubted myself. My body screamed that something was wrong, but his words wrapped around my mind like chains. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake listening to his calm breathing beside me, while my own chest tightened with every inhale. The image of those messages burned into my mind. Yet by morning, he acted as if nothing had happened. He made me coffee, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "I can't lose you. You're everything to me." My anger melted into confusion, and once again I found myself trapped in his cycle. Hurt, then soothed, broken, then mended just enough to stay. Slowly, my world began to shrink. Friends' invitations were met with his disapproval. "Why do you need them when you have me?" he would ask, his voice calm but laced with accusation. My best friend stopped calling as often because she said I was always unavailable. My family dinners became rare because every time I went, he grew distant afterward, punishing me with silence that felt heavier than any words. The isolation was not immediate. It was gradual, invisible. One day I realized I hadn't spoken to my sister in weeks. My colleagues at work stopped including me in after-office gatherings because I always declined, afraid of his reaction. The walls around me weren't built of bricks, but of fear, guilt, and his carefully crafted manipulations. He controlled the smallest details of my life. The dress I wore was too revealing. The lipstick shade was too much. The time I spent getting ready for work was suspicious. I tried to adapt, to avoid conflict, but no matter how much I adjusted, it was never enough. He always found something to criticize, and each time, he would twist the blame back to me. "You make me act this way. If you just listened, I wouldn't have to get upset." Nights became the hardest. His mood swings dictated my sleep. If he was angry, he would turn away, giving me his back and leaving me shivering in silence. If he was pleased, he would pull me close, whispering apologies, promising again and again that he would change. Those fleeting moments of tenderness kept me chained, convincing me that the monster I saw was just a phase, that the real man was the one who held me and promised forever. But the cracks widened with time. One evening, while scrolling through my phone, I saw that he had changed my passwords without telling me. When I asked, he simply said, "It's for your safety. I need to protect you, even from yourself." The words sounded noble, but the feeling was suffocating. I realized I no longer owned my privacy, my freedom, not even my thoughts. Everything had to pass through him. I began to lose weight, not by choice, but because my appetite vanished under the constant stress. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Hollow eyes, tired skin, shoulders slumped as if carrying an invisible weight. Yet when I tried to talk to him, when I tried to express my exhaustion, he turned it against me. "See what you do to me? Look how worried I am about you. I give everything, and you still doubt me. You don't know how lucky you are to have someone like me. Some nights, tears soaked my pillow while he slept soundly beside me. I wondered if I was going crazy, if the problem truly was me. That's what he wanted me to believe, that I was fragile, unstable, incapable of seeing reality. This is the cruel genius of a narcissist. They don't just manipulate your actions, they manipulate your truth, your identity, until you're nothing more than a shadow of who you once were. The turning point, the moment I couldn't ignore, came in the form of a photo. He had left his laptop open one evening, and there it was, an image of him with another woman, her smile wide, his arms wrapped tightly around her waist. My body went cold, my breath shallow, and the world spun around me. When I asked, he didn't deny it. He simply smirked and said, "If you were better, I wouldn't need anyone else." Those words shattered something inside me. The ground beneath my feet cracked, and for the first time, the illusion began to break. The fairy tale was gone. The man I thought loved me was nothing more than a predator, a narcissist feeding on my vulnerability. I wanted to scream, to run, to tell the world. But instead, I sat in silence, my heart pounding in my chest, my hands trembling uncontrollably. The truth was too heavy, and I wasn't ready to face it fully. Not yet. The breaking point came on a rainy night. The storm outside seemed to echo the chaos inside my heart. We had argued earlier that day because I wanted to visit my parents. He exploded, accusing me of caring more about them than about him. His words were sharp, his voice louder than I had ever heard before. And then, as suddenly as the storm had begun, he fell silent. Not a silence of peace, but of punishment. For hours, he ignored me, scrolling on his phone, laughing at messages he wouldn't let me see. My chest felt like it was being crushed. The walls of the apartment closed in, suffocating me. I begged him to talk, to explain, to at least look at me. Finally, he turned, his face cold, his eyes empty. "You are nothing without me," he said slowly, each word falling like a stone. "No one will ever love you the way I do. Without me, you have nothing." Those words should have broken me completely, and for a moment, they did. I sat on the floor, shaking, tears running uncontrollably down my face. But then, something inside me shifted. Instead of believing him, I heard another voice, faint but firm, reminding me of who I used to be. A woman who laughed freely, who dreamed of a future, who wasn't defined by a man's approval. The storm outside raged as if pushing me to act. My body trembled as I packed a small bag, each item a battle between fear and courage. He watched me, amused, as if confident I wouldn't go through with it. "You'll come back," he smirked. "They always do." But this time I didn't stop. I walked out the door, the sound of the rain mixing with the pounding of my heart. My legs felt weak, my hands numb, but each step was a declaration. I was leaving the prison he had built for me. The days after were not easy. Freedom didn't feel like joy at first. It felt like emptiness, like wandering through ruins after a war. I cried in the silence of my new room, missing the very man who had destroyed me. That's the cruel aftermath of surviving a narcissist. You grieve the illusion, not the reality. I went to the grocery store one morning and stood in front of the cereal aisle for 20 minutes, paralyzed. For so long, he had chosen everything. What I ate, what I wore, where I went, that I had forgotten how to decide for myself. The simplest choice felt impossible. But slowly, piece by piece, I began to rebuild. I played old songs I used to love. I called my sister and listened to her laughter. I sat in the park with a book, letting the sun warm my face. Small victories that most people take for granted became proof that I was still alive, still capable of living. The scars remain. Nights are the hardest, when silence brings back echoes of his voice, telling me I was worthless. But now, when that whisper comes, I fight back with a louder truth. I survived. I am still here. I don't pretend that my story ended in triumph. It ended in survival, and that is enough. My life is not a fairy tale, but it's mine again, piece by piece. And if you're listening to this, trapped in a toxic relationship with a narcissist, I want you to know something. You are not alone. Write in the comments, "I am not alone," because your voice matters. And if you ever feel lost, remember, there is always a way out. It may not be easy, it may leave scars, but it will give you back the most precious thing a narcissist tries to steal: yourself.